When it comes to training your facial muscles, there are three different kinds of training. The first is called indirect training, also called mewing, which basically means you press your tongue against the top of your mouth. This is called mewing. You can look it up on the Orthotropics mewing channel. Just Google mewing. The second part is to now actively train. So basically the second and the third part are to actively train your facial muscles apart from the posture aspect. Just like with normal posture, you want to have a good posture, but you also want to work out specifically different muscles. You can do two things. The first is to buy something like a jawline trainer, which basically you put in your mouth and then you just chew on it. This would be the equivalent to working out in the gym. But what you also can do is, instead of going to the gym, you can also do kind of a calisthenics kind of training, which is then to use gum. When it comes to gum, the problem is that much of the available gum has either sugar or sweeteners in it. And this is kind of a problem. Why is this a problem? Because it tinkers with your gut biome, it tinkers with your insulin sensitivity, and it also tinkers with your taste of sweetness. And to avoid these problems, there again are three options. The first option is to basically just use a traditional gum and to not care about the consequences. The second option is to go for something that is called mastics, which is basically a tree resin that you can chew on. But I haven't tried it myself, and I also therefore would not recommend it. And the third option is to try to find a chewing gum that doesn't have artificial sweeteners, that don't tinker with your gut microbiome, and so basically just trying to have a gum that doesn't have side effects, which gives you the benefits of a calisthenics kind of training of your facial muscles, and also the variety of hitting different muscles in your face, which again, over time, theoretically makes your face healthier, because over time you have a higher volume of facial muscles, and because your theoretical attractiveness is kind of a function of your genetics, of your facial muscles, and also of course of things that happened in the time you are living. Maybe you have been deformed by a car accident. This is also something that can happen. But so we have genetics, the things that happened to your face over time, but we also have these two other factors that make up basically how the rest of your body looks. And these factors are factors you can actually influence. These other factors are factors you cannot influence anymore, because genetics are something you cannot influence anymore, and also deformities or mechanical stressors that have been put on your face or the rest of your body, and therefore have resulted in injuries are also something you cannot change anymore. Therefore, we want to focus on the two left things. If you think about what the body actually consists out of, we can think of it very simplified as bones, so your skeleton. Then we have soft tissue, organs, your eyes, also your skin is an organ. Then we have muscle tissue and we have fat tissue. Again, two of these things are things you cannot really change. Your soft tissue is something you cannot really change, and also your skeleton is something you cannot really change. You can maybe increase the density of your bones slightly or less slightly by working out, by swimming, for example, compared to running, because you actually then maybe increase the density of your bones just a little bit. But again, we want to focus on the two things out of these four your body consists out of, and these are the same things that actually are also the thing you can influence when it comes to how attractive your body appears to yourself, but also appears to others. And these two factors are how much muscle mass you have and also how much fat mass you have. Think of it like this. If you have mountains, in between these mountains are valleys, and if you now look either from the side or from the top, what usually happens if you have a light source, let's say here, and the mountain is here, so here's the mountain, then you have a shadow here. What now happens if you basically throw a lot of snow on these mountains, up to the point where all the mountains are completely covered in snow, then eventually you have just an even surface. So now if we again have a light source and it lights this even surface, you just don't see any shadows anymore. And this is what happens if you add too much fat on the top of your skeletons and your bones and your soft tissue. You basically appear soft because you just don't see what is underneath anymore because there is no structure visible anymore. So therefore, the two factors you can influence are either increasing what appears to be the structure underneath, and one factor of these is again the muscle size or the muscle volume. What you can do is you can try to increase the muscle size. I take my arm for as an example. If I increase so basically when it comes to fat, there are two types of fat. There is the fat that is stored inside of you, so that's basically fat that is stored either in your organs or also in between your organs, or subcutaneous fat, which is stored under your skin. So therefore, if you get rid of skin by introducing a calorie deficit into your life, not rid of skin, but subcutaneous fat, what happens is that you just see more of what's underneath. And if you additionally work out, then also your structure you just appear more muscular at a certain given level of fat. Because if the fat level stays the same and your muscle mass increases, then these mountains basically grow larger. At least when it comes to the parts where your muscles determine how the shape of your body actually looks. When it comes to the nose, for example, there are not that much muscles on the nose, therefore there's also not much you can do when it comes to increasing the muscle size. But when it comes to your arms, for example, or also your stomach or your chest or wherever you have prominent dominant muscles, what you can do by working out is to just increase the size, and at a given fixed level of body fat, these will just appear larger. And again, there is this other effect that happens. If you have, again, the mountains, and the mountains, of course, are your body structure underneath, and you cover them with a little bit of snow, actually, they increase in size, just up to the point where you don't see the valleys anymore. So therefore, if you have a given fixed set of body fat, a given absolute level of body fat, not relative, because the relative level changes constantly. If you increase your muscle size and volume, you also increase your muscle weight. This means your overall weight also increases, and your body fat is just a percentage of your overall weight. So therefore, if you increase your muscle, but your fat stays the same, then you actually are decreasing your body fat percentage. This can also be a very nice way to avoid basically maybe getting too lean or getting rid of too much body fat, because if you just increase the muscle size, which is the thing probably everybody wants, because nobody wants to lose muscle size. So basically when we talk about losing weight, we are talking obviously only about losing fat, the inner organic fat, and also the subcutaneous fat, because nobody wants to lose muscle. Obviously, we cannot lose bone size or volume or weight, and we also cannot lose soft tissue. So basically, if we talk about losing weight, what we are actually talking about is losing fat. Now, when it comes to the face, why is all this important, and what has this gum to do with it? When it comes to the face now, it's similar. It's similar to the rest of your body. You have your skull underneath, you have your facial muscles, and then the more you work out these facial muscles, the bigger or the better the structure of your facial muscles actually appears. And then if you currently, because I'm too high in body fat, you cannot really see my muscles on my face. But if I now take something like this and put it in, then you just might see a little bit. So I just tried it and it doesn't work because I have just too much body fat right now in order to see my facial muscles, even if I work out my facial muscles or pump them up. So now the idea is, you can train your facial muscles in these 3 ways we previously discussed, and within the working out section of these 3 ways, you can either use something like a jaw trainer, or you can use a gum that is sugar-free and therefore doesn't negatively, or at least to a smaller amount, negatively impact your digestive tract, and also how insulin sensitive you are, and also how much cravings you have and things like these. And therefore, I just took a look on Amazon once again, because I previously kind of gave up gum altogether because it just didn't work. The sweetness just constantly triggered the sweetness in me, and if I then ate a banana, for example, it just was not sweet anymore. And I also sensed this rise in blood sugar, because that's something that's very specific. I also already discussed this in another video, but I don't want to dive deep into this here. It sounds a little bit weird, and it is, but nevertheless it seems to appear this effect that I can basically sense when I'm storing fat or also when I'm burning fat, which is weird, I know. Now, when it comes to these are basically the ones that I found. These were €5.60. I found them on Amazon. They are called Falim. This is a Turkish gum brand. And there was also something called Jawliner. The problem with the Jawliner pack was for also 150 grams. These were €5.60, an additional €3 of shipment cost. But the other ones were $20, so €20 in addition the shipping cost. So basically almost 4 times the price. So I searched for a long time solution, a solution that I would not have to switch again, and a solution that I then would have were basically this, in addition to trying to have a good tongue posture. But when it comes to the actual active working out part, I would have this option, and I would also have the more calisthenics, the more freestyle training with this, also training my tongue. I put these in already, I tried them. I actually can show you what one thing looks like. And in here are basically, I just try to pull out another one just for you. So one of these looks like this. And then these are 2 of these. And I think this is kind of enough for a very basic training. And then you can just throw it in and actually train your facial muscles, calisthenic styles, and maybe therefore improve how your face over time looks. And therefore you can basically increase your attractiveness halo just a little bit. So the halo effect is a psychological effect that states that we see other people, often mainly represented. So basically, if a person has a positive character trait, or a positive trait, doesn't have to be a character trait, then what often happens is that we take this one trait and we just say, because this one trait is so positive, we perceive all the other qualities of this person also as slightly more positive. This is called a halo effect. And when it comes to human interactions, or how we perceive other humans, or how we interact, one of the major effects is the halo effect. So basically, not the halo effect itself, but the attractiveness halo. You can see this basically on every movie screen ever. Why are there only attractive people on there? Because we as humans like to see attractive people compared to less attractive people, or compared to the same person being less attractive. So therefore, this is a kind of the toolkit I have used in the past, and also am maybe now using, because this was only in the mail as of today, to maybe increase my facial muscle size again. I also experimented, as I said, with almost 0 gum and just trying to do mewing. The problem was that I often also forgot mewing, and therefore over a time span of 2 years where I didn't do mewing at all, and also so I quit chewing gum around 2019 completely. This is 3 years ago. And the only reason my facial muscles haven't gone completely is not really because of mewing, because I tried this before, but much more because I found a jawline trainer that actually at least kept my facial muscles on kind of the same size. If I take a look at all the pictures, sometimes I see that my masseter muscles, so basically if you take a straight line, this is basically your mid-face, and then you have your jaw width from here to here. And what I often saw is that my jaw width even was wider than the section of my mid-face. And what happened over these years, and you can also see this in celebrities, for example, like Brad Pitt, they have a jaw width that is basically wider than the actual mid-face is actually. And if you take a Brad Pitt that has a jaw width that is basically more extended, compare it to a Brad Pitt where his jaw is more, as basically not as wide, but at the same level of body fat, then I think most people would prefer a wider jaw. So basically a bigger size in facial muscles, in specifically the masseter muscle. And so also when I looked at these pictures throughout the last 3 years, what I often saw is, in addition to having a slightly higher body fat than usual, than what is usual for me, or was usual for me, that additionally my jaw, so basically not my jaw, because the jaw is kind of the thing that sits underneath, but my masseter size decreased significantly, and this caused my mid-face kind of to be more rounded. So basically, if you take off the edges of my face, like this, I look a lot worse. If you, again, I cannot really contract these now because they are not very well trained. But again, the theory is if you have more sticking out masseter muscles, then the width of your face increases, and this also spreads your facial fat, your given facial fat at a given facial body fat level more evenly, and this gives you a slightly more attractive look. The idea, again, is not to compare yourself. Of course, this doesn't now mean you will look like Brad Pitt or Angelina Jolie. This is not what you should be going for. What you should be going for is to have maybe a 1%, a 2%, or a 5% improvement on your own face, on the version of you that either does these kinds of training, just as with working out. It's not that you will look like Arnold Schwarzenegger, but what you might look like is a version of you that is slightly more worked out. And it's the same with this, and therefore this is the end.